You know, good morning. I'll tell you one thing is that making Facebook videos is a good outlet for me when I'm stressing. It's a bit more constructive, but maybe it's not really such a good outlet because I'm honest. I'm too honest. Oh, don't worry, I'm not perfect by any means, but yeah, a little honesty just sinks ships like crazy at this point. I am seeing, well, they still spray the desert in the early morning hours, and sunrise comes up, and you catch a few streaks, and it's gone pretty quickly. It just whatever. But they're spraying us. They're going to continue spraying us. They're not going to stop. I have absolutely no faith in this government. I have no confidence in it, and I never will. What we need is the structure our founders gave us, which means chopping the shit out of this government. And people are talking about, well, we need to stop the fraud. We need to stop the waste. That's going to do it. No. We're totally enslaved in this country. We're in a slave system. I know you don't want to believe me. Well, I'm talking into my electronic leash right now, and you've got your electronic leash too. And they wire up everything to listen to us. And please don't think that's paranoia. Not on my part. They have such technology that they've got us all wired in. Believe me. They have got soldiers out there in civilian clothes that run around with some sort of a handheld gun. I never saw the gun. I just heard about a report one of these soldiers gave us a 3 decades ago, who was stationed at Fort Richardson. And he loved his job because he got to dress in civilian clothes, didn't have to wear a uniform all day long, and could drive up in the valley, and all he did all day long was pointed his gun, his instrument, if you will, at the windows of the houses and take a picture. This was about 30 years ago. And he said what he did is he took a picture, and apparently this gun is capable of doing several things. The first thing, it'll tell him how much cash you have in the house. Those little latex, platinum, whatever the hell it is, chips that are in the bills, the gun counts those sons of a bitches for you, if you will, and will tell him how much cash is in that house. The second thing, and that's not scary to me, I mean, okay, the government's full of a bunch of fucking thieves. That's all there is to it. And if they want to screw with you, they'll send all kinds of nasty actors against you. And if you're wondering sometimes that somebody's out to get you, and you're out there looking for a job and things aren't going very well, they actually actively tag us and harass us. That's what a large part of this government is. And by the way, the whole purpose of the FBI is to protect the deep state. They don't solve any crimes. They cover up the crimes, like Las Vegas. The FBI got in there and covered that son of a bitch up during Trump's first term as president. The scary thing is this enlisted man said that instrument was able to decode all of the conversations that had happened in the proximity of that piece of glass. Every conversation inside the house is recorded in the glass. Something about the chemistry of it, the plasma liquid part of it, something to do with that. But they've got all those recordings. Okay. Now that sounds paranoid to me. I don't know about you. But this is what was reported to us. And about the same time, got friends who are truckers, They're driving their trucks and they get harassed by the state police, just like everywhere. I'll tell you one thing, if I was president, that'd change. If a goddamn police officer wants to stop a truck driver for any reason, he better have a couple thermoses of hot coffee with him and some frickin' donuts with him to hand to the truck driver, because that's what I'm going to require. You want to stop that truck? Not only had you better have a cause for it, you better be willing to treat that man with respect and give him something while he's waiting for you to do your job. Look, if the truck drivers were able to have a little easier life, all of us would do better. I mean, treating that group, I know you want to look down your nose at them. They can't do anything else. They're not very bright. Oh, man. Shit. Some of the most intelligent people I have ever met are truck drivers. And I'm not kidding you. I think they drive a truck because they want to be alone, because the rest of us are a bunch of assholes and they don't want to deal with us. You see, stupid people don't like people with intelligence. And welcome to the United Stupid States of America. That's what we are. We're the stupidest people on the earth. After the Kennedy assassination, even the Japanese were more on top of that, solving that crime than our own people were. We are the laughing stock of the world because our central government is corrupted and they have us all fucking imprisoned and enslaved to them. United Stupid States of America, the USSA. I tell you, I met some truck drivers who are so brilliant they have to slow their asses down to explain things to me. And please don't get me wrong, I've got some intelligence, but these guys really know their stuff and they can explain things. It's just kind of like talking to a farmer. The common sense is off the charts. I miss my farmer friend. The nice thing about a farmer is they cut to the chase. They get to the nuts and bolts. They get to how things work or don't work, or how things are and the way they should be. They are programming our asses up for violence. They want us to do the violence. They do that all the time. They program up one nation against the other nation. That's what these wars have been that we've been fighting for who knows how long. They've been there egging both sides on. They've been there funding both sides. They've been there with their spies and manipulating both parties into war. They especially like Israelites attacking Israelites. And they follow the Bible. That's what gets me, is they follow the Bible. They know it better than we do. They look in there and they read things and they said, oh, so that's what it says. You will eat your children. And even the most gentle woman will eat her own kids. I mean, that's in the Bible somewhere. It really is. You need to read it. So what do? Oh, they buy up the fetal tissue. It's being discarded anyway. It's just trash. That's all it is. They buy that shit up. And what do? They feed it to us. So you're eating your own children across the whole country, and they're laughing in glee because they know damn well that they are doing things that make you damn yourself. Please don't get me wrong. They destroy countries from within. They're frickin' parasites. And they recruit other real Israelites to help them. Traitors. But then they got their real kind among them. They got descendants of the 200 fallen angels. I know. You just want to focus on Cain in the garden and that's it. No, baby, that's not it. You got 200 fallen angels and they're banging all the women they can, impregnating them all whichever way they want. There's no telling how much of this planet is populated with their seed. Please don't misunderstand me. I know that some of them turn out okay, but most don't. This government and the corporations are not separated at all. I mean, you and I separate them in our minds. We separate them with the symbols and with the buildings and on all of that. And the big show they're putting on in D.C. and in the newspapers, all the lies and stuff. I'll tell you, if there's a group we ought to go after, yeah, the attorneys are pretty bad, but I'd rather go after the media myself. Which would you do? Which would you off first? The politicians? The banksters? Or their media? There is no money. Get over it. They stole it all. You don't have any money. I don't have any money. There's no way to discharge debts, and they made a way, created a way for us to legally discharge our debts ever since that bankruptcy of the nation under FDR in 1933. FDR was another Jewish president. I want to say Jew president as if it's really a bad thing, but I don't know. The shit seems to flow to the top, and we always end up with the shit in the office, the Oval Office down there. I don't trust any of them. And I know a lot of you out there worshiping the cowboy. We just had to vote for him. We don't have to do anything now. Now we can just sit back. Everything's hunky-dory. It's going to be perfect. Trump will take care of it. We won't have to pay attention to any of it at all. How the hell do you think you got in this trouble? I know people don't want to talk politics. They're above talking politics. Don't want to talk religion. Above talking religion. Well, until you loosen your ass up and you're willing to talk truthfully and candidly, this is what we got. This is hell on earth. United Stupid States of America. We're all stupid. I'm including myself in that. I bought into their brainwashing for most of my life. As a little boy, I always asked my parents, why is this? Why is that? Things didn't make sense to me. It wasn't, the world was not making good sense. Why did they do it that way? And as a 5-year-old, I was able to point out better solutions and the way things should have been. But the adults, they were big, massive, huge. They were in charge. Bunch of dumbasses. You've been deceived. I've been deceived. It says in there, Yeshua says, they asked him, hey, Master, what do we do till you come back? I mean, what's your advice? What's your counsel? Be ye not deceived. And stand your ground. What does that mean to you? Don't be deceived. What's the big deal? I'm not deceived. I know it all. Yeah, my teachers tell me I know it all. I can spit it right back out just the way they taught me. Yeah. I had a 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Lewandowski. I really loved Mrs. Lewandowski. I'm not kidding. I liked her a lot. I cared for her quite a bit. She liked to have the desk set up around the room, so it was a big circle. And she was a tall woman. People back then weren't really very fat, to be honest with you. She was tall, and she was, she was my teacher. I wouldn't say she was good looking. I wouldn't say she was bad looking. She was my teacher, and she was a tall lady, and she did her best to teach us, and it was for mathematics, it was all memorization stuff, so we just kept repeating things over and over. My mother didn't tell me this for quite a while because she was too worried I was too full of myself, or it'd feed my head. Mrs. Lewandowski, my 4th grade teacher, Heidelberg, Germany, by the way. You know, on the Rhine River with the castle and the fireworks, and I saw the aqua car Oh, I wanted that so badly. That son of a bitch just drove that car into the Rhine. It was a convertible. The top was down, and he just went across the river. Oh, I really wanted those. One of those. I mean, what an amazing toy it was. I thought, man, that's what we need to have. I mean, the family loved, my dad loved boats. He always had a little boat of some sort. That car seemed to take care of it all. Anyway, the German people were very honest. They ratted themselves out all the time. They were extremely logical. Extremely logical, and they were innocent like children. They weren't corrupted. They were nice people. They weren't the boogeymen. They weren't these horrible, evil creatures that the adults were trying to convince us kids they were. Yeah, before going there, I watched all that propaganda shit on the black and white television. We didn't have color back then. We had one of the earliest television sets. We didn't have a radio in the house. That was in the car. I didn't want to leave the car. I wanted to listen to the radio. Cars were so much bigger back then. You could sit on the damn floor. There's enough room as a kid to sit back there. On the floor. I was small. I was tiny. I didn't grow for a long time. It was pretty damn pitiful. I loved football. In the 9th grade, when I went out for football, the coach went past everybody. He was wearing a line. He's inspecting us. And he stopped in front of me and he shook his head. I wasn't going to play football. Thank you, Coach. You probably saved my ass. I was half the way to the others. I was not going to be doing very good on that field. Hell, big kid at the bus stop giving me a bunch of shit, and I finally fought him. I bloodied him so bad, and I could have finished him off, so to speak. I had one last move, and I was like, no, man, I'm not jumping on his head and putting it into the puddle or into the... But I was, man, it was everything I could do to get this guy down and get him, But he would step on the heels of my shoes every day behind me on the bus. His mother called my mother up. Of course, I went home with a bloody shirt. I had a bloody nose. He did too. His mother called my mother up upset, and then she found out. The boy was twice my weight, literally. I was 72 pounds, and he was 144 pounds. Shit. I didn't like fighting that much. I mean, I didn't like hurting the other guy. He was bigger than I was, but anyway, I guess I'm lauding myself when I don't want to do that. But look, we need to return to the original structure our founders gave us. The government's never going to tell us the full truth until we take over these institutions, capture them, their staff, yes, take them into protective custody, just like I want to do to every freaking bankster, man. And we need to debrief them. And what I think we do is we try them, and we sentence them, and we suspend the sentence upon the obeisance to the rest of us. Any one of us who asks any questions, they have to tell the truth. They don't tell the truth, the sentence gets carried out fully. Be it off with the head, or you just don't come out of the pit ever again. And these are dangerous people. You can't have them communicating with the outside world. Let me give you a nice example. And I got this from a deputy warden that was working in Central Unit at the prison. And the deputy warden was trying to let me know how dangerous this fellow was. And they had to get a big jumpsuit for him because he weighed about 600 pounds. 450, 600. He was way up there. And it was a chomo, a child molester. And I mean, he was overweight and entitled and quite young, actually. I think he might have been all of 23 years of age or something like that. I did some things to him that I shouldn't repeat. They did some things to him that weren't right. But I don't want to prejudge the deputy warden. He really knew his shit. He was taking care of business properly, I think. So it was a little outlandish, but anyway, they had to have a special suit made for this guy. He was so big. Cost them quite a bit to have one of those made up. A lot of cloth, too. These guys are dangerous because even though they're in the penitentiary, they get people following them on the outside. They get people worshiping them, especially women. And what do? They conspire to get their acolytes that are free in public to do their little crimes for them. And they get told the crimes, and they find it tantalizing. They get titillated from hearing about this stuff and setting this weird asshole out there who's vulnerable enough and stupid enough to follow his directions on child molesting or some crime or this crime. That's what happens. So when you think, oh, we just have to arrest them, they can't hurt us that way. Oh yeah, they can. Believe me, they can. I got called in. Well, no, I didn't get called in. Actually, a fella came into my office. A young black inmate came in, showed up. Good-looking young man. I'm going to guess in his 20s. And he had a message for me. One of the bigwigs that was in prison there, isolated, wanted a visitor. He wanted me to visit. And I would be well taken care of. Well, that's nice. The guy's wired into the mob. They're killers. He's killers. I didn't refuse completely, but I set my requirements on it. And the requirement was this. Tell him to put in a health needs request, and I'll see him in my office. The man wasn't willing to put in a health needs request. And I wasn't willing to go just walking down to his cell and become his friend. There's a price to be paid for having such an association. I wasn't going to do it. There were other offers as well. Not very many because they knew that I wasn't going to take anything, and I had a bad reputation. I was noted as the most dangerous man in Central Unit. And the inmates hated Dr. Kent. Why? I had to know why. I mean, what the hell's wrong, you know? I do my job properly. Okay, fine. I charge them the $3 out of their bank for the session. I do the job properly too, you know, and I don't just send them away. And I try to treat them or take care of them. Whatever the needs are, I try to address that. I was dangerous because the inmate said nothing gets past him. Nothing gets past him. Oh. I had to laugh because the officer who was telling me this was older than myself, and I had to tell her 3 times and point to my identification 3 times. And the inmates that were in the store were all quiet listening to the conversation that the officer was having with Dr. Kent because she didn't know who the hell I was. 3rd time I told her, I'm Dr. Kent. Oh. I was in there getting protein bars. It was really hot. I wanted to do it in the morning so I could walk across the yard and get the things into my office before they melted. I was bodybuilding back then. We're in a lot of trouble. We can't get our government back. They're not going to give it back to you. No, it's totally been taken away. You have to take it back. I'm not going to tell you how to take it back. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. You could try to do it the way they did it to us, but the problem is they're very well coordinated. And they lie to their own people, and they have their own people convinced that they're all victims. So they got to go after us because everybody hates the Jews. No. That's not the case. The problem is that we don't have many real Jews, that is, descendants of Israel the man. We have, for the most part, descendants of Edom. Edomites from Mount Edom, Mount Seir. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a bunch of assholes out of Khazaria. 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 Those are not Israelites that are occupying Palestine, that have stolen Palestine. The Rothschilds are not Israelites. Balfour wasn't an Israelite. Now, sometimes they're mixes, Israelite and Edomite. I mean, that's what happened. That's what Herod the Great probably was. He was an Idumean. Well, I say Idumean. I've been saying it for too long. Idumean is the right way to say it. It's the Greek word for Edomite. Edom, Idumean, Edomite, Edomite, Idumean. Herod the Great was an Edomite. Why was that in the Bible? What was so important about us knowing that Herod the Great was an Edomite? America has been conquered from within. And you may think, well, we just elected our own man. Your own man? Really? Did you do that? Did you accomplish that? Are you sure that he's yours? I think you can make him yours, but I don't think he is yours. He's too busy distributing warp speed again. They're going to use his ass to convince you that it's safe and effective. One more shot. They're going to give it another try. They're going to try again. Let's give it one more shot. Maybe we can get more compliance. And by the way, in case you're wondering, that's in the Bible. Only they don't call them the same thing, and I'm not going to bother to mention the name here. YouTube is too busy protecting their ilk, their kind, their brothers, their sisters, their fellow Edomians, Edomites. It's time you started calling that little postage stamp of a country in the Middle East by its real name, Edom, E-D-O-M. It was the Edomites that burned the temple down in Jerusalem. Do you really think the Babylonians would have burned that temple down? Hold on. The guy shows up. The captain or the general, the head of the troops shows up and talks in perfect Hebrew to Hezekiah. Hezekiah's up on the walls and he tells him, don't talk to us in Hebrew. Talk to us in this other language. And this fellow says in Hebrew, what? So that the others can't understand me? He says, I want them to understand me. Your God told me to do this to you. Look, it's the same thing that happened to the northern house of Israel. All 10 tribes up there. The guy shows up from Assyria and says, your God told me to do this to you. I have been commissioned by Yahshua to administer the punishment for your crimes. That's what that was. Do you think that the fellow's going to show up there upon the orders of who the temple was built for? And going to destroy the temple? No, he didn't destroy the temple. The Babylonians did not destroy the temple. It was the Mount Seir occupants. It was the Edomites. Edomites. The Edomites. Edomites is the Edomite. Edomian. You want to take it back. Well, the first thing you do is you stop buying any of these advertised products. That's right, you shut the whole thing down. You don't buy their prepared foods, whatever you do, because they put the poisons in there. You don't buy any of their products that you don't absolutely have to have. And if you've got a friend or an acquaintance, there's somebody in the village that you're in who does make something and does a good job at it, buy it locally. Don't buy it from the big manufacturers, because they're putting trace elements of metals, heavy metals and chemicals and all kinds of poisons and pathogens in everything. They've been slowly poisoning us for a while. They're not going to stop spraying us. Now, the first time Trump took office, I watched. They stopped spraying us for about 5 months, maybe 6 months. And then it was blue skies, baby. It was beautiful. And then June, July, Trump made a deal with the devil. And they proceeded to spray us again. Now, since Trump's been elected, they've doubled down on the spraying, maybe tripled on it. And they have switched over to drones flying these things and spraying us, because the pilots, they can't trust them anymore, because the pilots are starting to not believe them, that they're only overspraying to reflect the sun to prevent global warming and save the planet. And they're stupid enough to believe that shit. Of course, they have to go to training, so they have to sit on their asses, buy orders, and watch these videos that show them what could happen. What will happen is what they're told. This is what's going to happen if you don't do your mission, if you don't fly. I just as soon ground aircraft, all of them, for a while. Remember 9/11? Right after that, everything was grounded for quite a while. Man, the skies were blue again. Yeah, they stayed grounded for about 9 months that time. If I remember right, it was about 9 months that time. And the skies were blue, the air was clean. Man, people weren't getting as sick. They weren't getting as sick. And you wonder why all these children have asthma. It's because we're poisoning them. Yeah, I'm saying we, you and I, who sit on our ass, who won't talk politics because we're above that shit, you know? I mean, we're above that. We're superior. We don't talk politics here in this house. No, we're superior to that. No, you live underneath the fucking tyrants, and you love your slavery, and you love being told, we're the greatest country in the world. Nobody dare attack us. Nobody would dare go after us. Nobody would dare stand up against us. Who are you? Houthi, Houthi, who? Houthi, 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 who? Who are you? The Houthis kicked our asses. They don't want you knowing that. Yeah, the people are rising up and realize that with their fucking rocks and their frickin' spears, they can do something. But they're not taking it like Americans are. They're not going to take it sitting down. Americans, United Stupid States of America, you're going to take it sitting down thinking, oh, we're the greatest. They can't do that to us. Yes, they are. They're doing it to us. And they're going to keep doing us. There have been many great men trying to warn you as to what's going on. One of them spent 8 years in a sanitarium in Washington, D.C. Trying to remember his name. Eustace Mullins. Ezra, why can't I remember your name? Oh, the famous poet. I didn't like his poetry very much, and I haven't read very much. This difficult individual. I guess he and I have something in common. Folks, the reason you want to grow up in a Bible-structured family is for the proper order to prevail and for health to reign supreme. All kinds of health. But the others out there who do not like the fact that there's actually a rank to people, they want to subvert things and take over those positions that they're not capable of handling, not handling properly. Pissants like my brother. God, what a stupid asshole. Stupid asshole I was to think he actually would look out for my best interests. And my parents were stupid as well. They thought he would take care of things properly. He didn't do a totally bad job. He could have done a much worse job. But it screwed me. But that's okay. Because according to my sister, nobody in the family loves me. Nobody likes me in the family. I should just do the family a favor and off myself. Yes, she posted that on my blog a long time ago publicly. And I complained to my parents, oh, she's just joking. She's just joking. Fucking bullshit. She's never been joking. And you've been letting her get away with this the whole damn time. Well, the family's dying off. It's a result of the fact that you did not follow biblical standards in the household. No. And most men aren't going to read the Bible. Women will read it and tell them what the Bible says, maybe. But the problem is you got to read it for yourself. Most of you are men. Very few women are tuned into this channel. I know that. I tried to see if I could attract some of the young babes, some of the young women. Trying to see if I could help them. But the problem is they're too busy helping themselves to whatever they're entitled to. China just changed their divorce laws. And they come into effect, I believe, the 1st of March or the 1st of April. And Chinese divorce laws are such that now, if a man owns something before the marriage, he gets to keep it. If parents leave something to their children, and their children are married, it belongs to their children, not to the marriage. Women refuse to take responsibility, no matter what the race, no matter what the culture. They all want the entitlement. They all want the goodies. And that's it. I can just hear my friend saying in the back of my mind, why do you think they call it the oldest profession in the world? Look, they're not going to hand you back the country. And this shit show, dog and pony show they're putting on downtown D.C. is there to entertain you and to make you think they're really doing something. And don't get me wrong, they're really doing something. It's just that it's so bad, it's so wicked, it's so ugly that it'll never be finished the way they're doing it. The way I want to do it, it'll be finished in 2 years. Oh, yeah. Yeah, my buddy told me if you and I were president, there'd be a lot more dead people out there, a lot more blood in the streets. I looked at him ready to defend myself, saying, oh, no. I thought for a minute, I said, yeah, you're right. I'm so pissed off about this shit. Yeah. And you're pissed off too. And the main thing is they want you to get pissed off enough so that you let your guard down and you do something without thinking very fully of it. I know. I go through the same thing. Same temptations. I could kill that. No. My boundaries have been violated. There's actually ways to pursue and beat their asses. And I'm not going to tell you here. They go after me if I did that because they don't want a bunch of people knowing the secrets and going after people that way. And you can go after the most powerful person. And you can make them pay. You might not be able to get them put in prison for their crimes, but you can certainly get them to pay. Anybody who's been with me for a while, I used to joke about the woman that I dated that tried to kill me. I called her my wife. Talk about deceptive. I just decided I had to go look yesterday, so I looked up, and sure as hell, there she is on Escort Babylon, running the same pictures from more than 10 years ago when she was 18. She started prostitution back when she was 18, from what I can tell. I haven't tried to research her. I'm not enamored with her. I don't want to know much about her. I just know that she almost killed me, and the police don't give a shit about that. I mean, everything is set up to hurt the men. The whole society is set up that way. The only thing we men can do is refuse to participate. And I do mean that. You can take yourself out of this system, and you can refuse to participate. And the women, they're not to be trusted. As long as the laws that are in place now remain in place, they cannot be trusted, because they will use every bit of it. Oh dear, I would never do that to you. She would never do that to me. They'll all do that to you. They'll all take everything the government, their real husband, can give them. And this no-fault divorce, whereby she gets rewarded prizes, cash, money, goodies for breaching the contract, that's got to end. And if it doesn't end, no more marriage. That's just the way it's going to be. Yeah, I know. I'm probably going to walk into a marriage next month. For all I know, I'm a hypocrite. I know that. Yeah, I'm kind of desperate and very dateless at this point. I mean, when I realized I wasn't dateable anymore, it bummed me out for a little while. Then I felt kind of relieved. Because back when I was earning a living and working as a psychologist, I had a lot of attention, and one of the women told me, "Don't you know you can have any of these women you want? Any of these women." And she was right. I didn't know that, I didn't know that it was possible to do that. I had busted my ass for decades, not just years, decades, and finally was starting to make some money. And yeah, I got some interest in, but the crazy thing is that when they found out how little a psychologist actually made, they were pretty disappointed. So, yeah, you hold the credential out there, and you tend to get the predators. I like Pearl, the woman who's on YouTube, and I like Emily. Emily appeals to me. She's kind of my type. Long, straightish hair, and she's a beautiful woman. She's a lovely woman. And of course, her smile makes her radiate so nice. And I've seen her when she's not smiling, and she's nowhere near as beautiful, to be honest with you, then. But she brings us such wisdom and such reports that she's beautiful. She's a very uplifting woman. She tells women, this is what men need. It's really simple. It's not very hard at all. I mean, and she's doing her best to tell women how to behave. You want to get married? You want a successful marriage? She'll tell you. But I'm going to tell you right now, if I get to be president and I'm in any shape at all, I'm going to start a program, and it's going to be really simple. Last night, I thought about this. I'm going to improve on what Mr. Hitler did. Herr Hitler actually came up with a good program to help the women out in his country in particular, and they loved him for it. So I'm looking at going, they worship him, they adore him. Why do they love him so much? It's because he gave their husbands jobs. 6 million of them, by the way. 6 million. Where have I heard that before? Oh. Yeah. He monetized labor. So the man was always going to get rewarded. The reward was always there. They weren't going to cheat him out of it like they do over here. They cheat us out of it. You get a little bit of a bump on your paycheck and say, oh, we got to take it because you cheated this much on your stupid-ass illegal income tax, by the way. But I'm going to take it a step further because I don't want these women living off us anymore. I'm going to make the requirement. You see, I don't know what Herr Hitler's requirements were. I would definitely want to put some women on that and have them do the research. Why women? Because they got the vested interest in having good marriages, and they know damn well that if society is structured up better with good families, that we got it made. You know, the backbone is there, the foundation is there. And I would ask them, find out what the program was that he implemented, because what he did basically was he loved his people and he wanted more of them. So he had these provisions so that if you got married, he kicked out the bankers and their usury. It was illegal to usury should be illegal because you're demanding money that doesn't exist. You're lending money that doesn't exist, and you're demanding that plus interest, which doesn't exist. It's just a real bad con game. I'm not going to try to explain it to you now. Just take my word for it. There is no money, and they're not lending you any money, and you don't owe them any money. They don't want you to know that. By the way, do you know why Bonnie and Clyde were loved by the people? Bonnie and Clyde figured out that the mortgage industry, the new mortgage industry, was a crime, a con job. And when they went in to rob banks, what the establishment does not want you to know is that they went in and destroyed the mortgage papers. They didn't go in there after money as much as they went in there after the mortgages that had the original signatures on them, and they destroyed those. And they told the people, you don't have a mortgage anymore. Yeah, that's why the people loved them. Well, the cars were pretty fancy. The furs were pretty fancy. They were living a little bit on the high side, which we all would like to do, of course. And but they were folk heroes. Yeah. And I don't think that the FBI should have murdered them like they did. It wasn't necessary. My God, the bullet holes in that car. Couldn't they have taken them alive? I think they could have. But they didn't want them alive. Why? Because the FBI works for your frickin' banksters. And they didn't want them telling the people the truth. So they murdered them. That's right. Fucking bunch of idiots. FBI murdered. They murder people all the time. Don't kid yourself. Believe me, I've been in their offices enough. I've been threatened by one. What was that guy's name? Burns. Byrne or Burns. Don't you publish my name, I'll whatever. He threatened my ass. And the first guy, when I went in, was a fellow, I think his name was Young. Gave me his business card. Remember, a young guy, much younger man than myself. He must have just come right out of law school or something, because he was a young kid and full of energy, and he was naive enough to take my report before I was finished giving it, and he told me why he was taking it. He might be one of the few agents that was good back then, probably destroyed by now. But that was on Indianola Avenue in Phoenix, Arizona. And he didn't even let me finish the story. And I was going upstairs to report to his superiors. Corruption of elected officials is what he told me. That's what he was going after. It was Governor Janet Napolitano, who was governor of Arizona at the time. You know, the one that became Big Sister. Anyway, your FBI is not there to solve crimes. They're there to cover crimes up. When your CIA whacked your President Kennedy, the FBI was there whacking the eyewitnesses. And from what we can tell, from the technology we've been able to use, J. Edgar Hoover killed 31 eyewitnesses to the Kennedy assassination. I got a book that names one of the hitmen on his quads in the book. I only read halfway through the book. It's very tedious. I mean, when you read some of these books, it's a real chore to push your way through them. But it's called Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper, a fellow who died at a very young age. He was an alcoholic, and I wouldn't be surprised if they hounded him and harassed him and set him up for all kinds of bullshit in the background and probably tried to charge him with crimes. There's a fellow named Fritz Springmeier. The FBI set his ass up too. The FBI set him up by sending over a couple of guys, and they needed a ride one time. So what did they charge him with? He didn't know what the hell they could possibly want. He just gave them a ride somewhere. He ended up being charged as the getaway driver in a bank robbery. They set his ass up for that. The FBI did that to Fritz Springmeier, and he spent 5 years in the pokey because of that. And your FBI and your ATF went after the guy at Ruby Ridge. Kind of a weird deal. We don't know what to make of that one because it's obvious to us that the family was Jewish, and usually the Jewish families are protected because they're related to the banksters, and the banksters use them for protection. Princess is at the door. Been on here for damn near an hour. She needs breakfast. I gotta go pick up charged up batteries and hope I can get my ass out of here once and for all. The Aquahot fellow that rebuilt this unit apparently got caught making errors and got fired. But this was a unit that he rebuilt. And I swear to God, it's cross-wired. And I think that's where the problem is. And the wires were melting on me. They were ready to burn. So we avoided that immediate fire, not a future fire. And then plus, the guy wrapped the wires around another pipe. A hot pipe. He wrapped wires around those. So the other Aquahot technician cleaned that up. But I got to go back up to see the fellow whose business did the job and get this thing done right. It's real cold going up that way right now. I really don't want to get on the road this early February. It's just too early to go up into Colorado. Shit. Look, this is really very simple. We are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I know you think Trump is your savior. Well, I got news for you. Trump is somebody else's savior. That's right. They've been declaring it. We've been warned about him. We've had all kinds of things declared. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about President Trump right now. I think President Trump's only hope to save America is if we rise up against him and hold his feet to the fire, and we unite all together under one motto, one goal: original structure, real 13th Amendment. The real 13th Amendment. In other words, he took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. Did he or did he not? Well, either we go after him for failure. If he fails to enforce the law properly, either we go after him for breaching his oath, or we're screwed. It says there in the book of Revelations, there was a virus, if you will. There was pestilence. And the first one took 1/3 of the earth's population. And the second one, there's a second one after that. We're not into that yet. The second one takes another 1/3 of the earth's population. Now, you could think, well, that's 1/3 and 1/3. That leaves 1/3. That's one way to look at it. But we do the multiplication and division things in arithmetic problems first, which is why I beat my attorney friend out when I answered the problem. 11 was the correct answer, not 1. And I gave the explanation. But, you know, I was like a mathematical genius because of Mrs. Lewandowski. I had to stay in summer school one summer, and she was my teacher in summer school, so I worked with her through the summer, and that helped catch me up in mathematics. And then I excelled from there. I never finished telling you the story, did I? Oh, man. All right, I'm going to finish telling you the story. I can't remember when my mother told me this. I'm going to think about it, and hopefully I'll be able to remember. But Mrs. Lewandowski called my mother up, and she was in tears on the phone. And she told my mother, "He's telling me how to run my classroom." I'm just guessing that's what the conversation was. I'm getting this from my mother, so who knows how accurate it is. And she says, "Well, why don't you do?" My mom's response, why don't you do what I do to him? Just give him a whack on the behind. Mom's giving her permission. You can spank him. No problem. Just whack away. Spank him. And Mrs. Lewandowski cried on the phone and says, no, you don't understand. He's right. So whatever I was telling her to do was correcting her. From my seat as a tiny fourth grader, probably the smallest in the room. And there I am telling her things or stating things or observing and making comments. And my mother had a lot of pride in that because the teacher admitted that I was right. Yeah, I remember Mrs. Lewandowski and Mrs. Cargyle. I was learning how to write proper script, but we didn't have ballpoint pens back then. We had, this was 1959, 1960. We didn't have ballpoint pens then. Somebody had to take a ballpoint pen back in time to that woman who was in hiding, who wrote her diary. She never wrote it. Her father wrote it. And there was a court case over that because the people that hired him to write it refused to pay him. I think it was a $5,000 agreement. So he won. They had to pay him the $5,000 that was there by the contract. So she never wrote it. I don't even think she existed. The Lying Diaries of Anne Frank. We have to unite. And I don't care how uneducated you are or what difficulties you might have. You understand right from wrong if you're listening to this channel. That's all you need to know. And you need to affirm the right, affirm the good. The good is return to the original 13th Amendment and enforce it to the hilt. Trump, unfortunately, is going to be making deals, and they're going to be secret deals. I don't think anything can be done in secret anymore. I'm not going to trust any bit of this country. If I was president, I would invoke the original 13th Amendment, and I'd tell the attorneys, you are free to discuss and propose a remedy, but you are not free to talk privately about it. And I would sentence them all to death, suspend sentence upon their cooperation. But if one of them goes and says, oh, it's attorney-client privilege, you can't know about that, you can't ask about that, I'm going to say, did we not suspend the sentence upon your cooperation? And here you are, violating what I told you to do? Sorry, babe, you're gone. I want you to understand, we're dealing with a vile and vicious enemy, with a sociopathic culture that has destroyed us already. We just hasn't caught up with us yet, and they will succeed in getting us nuked at this rate. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, I'd like to be president because I really don't trust anybody else to do the job properly. And I don't trust myself very much either, to be honest with you. I don't think I've got the capacities or the capability. I don't think I have the nerve strength. I don't think I've got whatever it is that it takes to do that. I just don't think I have that, but I really think I'm able to advise. I think I'm able to make judgment calls. I think we need younger men in their 50s who are, I wouldn't want them under 50, to be honest with you. I think that if they're in their 50s, that's the golden age, man, and they still got some strength to them, and they can still tolerate some stresses pretty good. They can still go to war if they have to. Yeah, I just want to be in the background advising them, giving the thumbs up or the thumbs down on their different proposals. We have to agree that we do not allow the government to expand beyond the limits placed upon it by the Constitution and the 13th Amendment. The real 13th Amendment, which Abraham Lincoln overwrote with his anti-slavery amendment, wittingly, knowingly, because he knew that the original 13th Amendment, the real 13th Amendment, which had been fully ratified in 1812, then violated in 1813, he knew that it made it illegal for him to hold the office of president. You haven't had a proper president for a long time. We haven't been in charge of things for a long time. If I was president and come time for the election, the word would be very simple. States, if you can't certify to my satisfaction your balloting, we're not going to count your votes. We're not going to give you the electoral votes. You're not going to have them. We're going to wipe them out that time. You're not going to be represented in that particular election because you did something wrong. And by the way, this thing about being in the country illegally, we just need to have a law and enforce the law. And the law would be, if you're in the United States of America illegally, every punishment imaginable is available, including the death penalty. Yeah. And if you're doing something with your citizenship that you shouldn't be doing, well, we're going to just be taking it away, and we're going to be banning you permanently from re-entering the borders or the territories. Yeah. May Yahweh bless. Man, over an hour.